Okay. Thank Hashem that we're able to learn every day. This chus of our learning. Immediately. They will start at the Mishnah on Yud Gimel Amud Aleph. Okay. Mishnah starts like this. We notice that this woman is talking with a man, and the woman isn't married. And we say to her, who is this fellow that you're talking to? She says, Ish plain of a kohen. He's so-and-so, and he's a good guy. He's a kohen, which means that he's of perfect lineage. He's not going to make me puzzled to marry a kohen. He's Jewish. He's not a mamzer. That's her comment. What she says about him. Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Elazar say, okay, we trust her. What's the problem with talking that we have to see in the Gemara? Rabbi Yeshua says, let me pianachim. We don't live by her words, by her mouth. We don't trust her. We think the worst of this guy. And we say that she lived with someone that was a nasin, one of the nasinim, that was people that were not allowed to marry into the congregation, or maybe as a mamzer, and until she can prove differently. So, okay. Let's say we see that she's pregnant. Now she's a single girl. So we say, what's the nature of this fetus? So she says, it's from a man that's a so-and-so, his name, and he's a kohen. Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Elazar say we trust her. The same story, right? Rabbi Yeshua, we don't live by her words. We say the worst, that the father of this child was probably a nasan or a mamzer until she can prove otherwise. Okay, so nasan is this tribe from the Canaanite families that fooled Yeshua about who they were. Yeshua accepted them as converts and then found out that they were actually from the Canaanite people. And they made them into the water carriers and wood choppers. So far, that's not a problem. But then when Shaul killed out the city of Nov, there was a big famine or a plague, and they asked, what did we do wrong? They said, well, you have to ask forgiveness from the Nesinim. And the Nesinim said, because we lost our jobs, we were the water carriers of that city now, so we'll only forgive the people if Shaul's children die. And the sages said, well, that's cruel. That's not a Jewish characteristic. They don't gain anything from it. It's not like only if you give us a lot of money, there's no gain from them. It's just cruelty. They said that they're not considered, they're not able to be married into the congregation. So we said there's three characteristics of a Jew, right? Baishanim, Rahmanim, and Gaim Chasadim, and not like them, they were not Rahmanim. They were not compassionate. They're just cruel. Okay. My midaberes, what does it mean, midaberes, that she's speaking? That sounds quite innocent, right? Ziri Amar Nistera. Ziri, one of the sages, he says, it means that she was secluded. What's it mean, speaking? Yichud. And interesting, just because of Yichud, Rabbi Yeshua says that she's pasul. He takes the Yichud a step further. He's like, well, we know what happens when the door closes. She's pasul. Ravasi Amar Nivala. Ravasi says, no. Midaberes, speaking, actually means that there were witnesses that were actually together, not just that the door closed. If we go take the first approach that there was yichud, the door closed, they were secluded together. That's why it says that they were talking. We don't know what they did. They were talking, but nevertheless, we're strict about it according to Rabbi Yeshua. But according to Rasi, that says that we saw them together, having intimate. So what does it mean that they were talking? So Gemara says lishna ma'alya. That's just a euphemistic expression Kediksiv, Achla Machsapia Varmalei Palti Oven. We have a verse in Mishlei that says that the promiscuous woman says she eats, she wipes her mouth, and she says, "I have done no evil." Now we know what that's talking about. It's not really talking about eating. It's talking about that she had relations. So that's a euphemistic expression for relation. The Mishnah uses that as well. We see that she was talking. That means that we saw them having relations. Okay. That would be Zeiri. That would be Ravasi. Yeah, very good. If we follow the opinion of Zeiri, that says that the first case was that they were secluded. The second case was that she was pregnant. So, that's why we have two cases, Midaberes and Mu'beres, secluded and pregnant. What's the difference? Well, when they were secluded, and nevertheless, Rabbi Yeshua says that she's also to marry a kohen. That's a big chumrah. It's a chiddush. We didn't even know what they did. We just know the door closed. And you're going to say that now she can't marry a kohen just because she was in a room once with a fellow? That's a big chiddush. And according to and the second opinion, not the second opinion, the second case was she's pregnant. And nevertheless, Rabbi Gamliel says that she is permissible to a kohen. That's a big chiddush, even though we know what they did. Of course, she's pregnant, right? So nevertheless, she's permissible to a kohen. So each side has a chiddush, one for Rabbi Gamliel and one for Rabbi Yeshua. For a kohen gadol, yeah. El Ravasi Tarti Lamali, but according to Ravasi, it's both the same things. If she's pregnant or if she was having relations, to us, that means the same thing. Why do we need two cases? The Gemara answers, well, one case is telling us that she is permissible according to Rabbi Gamliel. The other case is telling us that her daughter is permissible to marry a kohen according to Rabbi Gamliel. The Mu'beres one is telling us that when she gives birth, that child is kosher. Well,
Bita is an offspring, not really.
Offspring. All right. Why does it say bita? That she can marry a kohen. That she can marry a kohen, and we don't say that she's a mamzer. Well, then that would just be a kohen. We don't say. Let's say he was a chalal. Would the daughter be a chalala? Yeah, the daughter would be a chalala. Yeah, so that's chalala is someone that's not permissible to marry a kohen because the mother wasn't permitted to the father and that affects the validity to marry a kohen of the child. Strictly kahuna prohibition.
Or just the practices of the Kohen?
No, it's halacha. Very serious halacha.
No, I understand that. Is this halacha the subject of this mission?
Yeah. A widow could marry a kohen. Okay. So, Hani Chalamanda Amar Lidibri Amachshaba Machshaba Bita. There's actually machlekes about this. See, it's not so simple. This woman that we see now with another man, she had a chazaka beforehand that she was permissible. You're trying to change the chazaka, so she does have a cheskas kashas. A chazaka means an assumed status. When you want to change that, you have to something very solid to change it. The daughter, on the other hand, the offspring, the fetus, has no assumed status. It's starting off with a doubt. So just because the mother, we would say, is permissible, doesn't mean that the daughter is permissible. Now, it's sort of dependent on each other, but at the same time, when it comes to the rules, this one has a strength. The mother has a strength to make her kosher that the daughter doesn't have. Well, that's a machlekes. According to the opinion that says that if the mother's kosher, according to Rabbi Gamliel, then the daughter is also kosher. We have two cases. It makes sense. But there is another opinion that says that this Mishnah is only talking about the mother. The daughter is always puzzle. So how are you going to answer? Why do we have two cases? This is all according to Ravasi, that says that the first case was they had relations. The second case is she's pregnant. Relations and pregnant for practical purposes is the same thing. She got pregnant through relations. The question is, who was the guy? So it's really the same case. Why do we need two cases? If one is for the mother and one's for the daughter, and the halacha would be, Rabbi Gamliel holds the same thing by both, so then good, we have two chidushim here. But if we say that Rabbi Gamliel never says that the daughter's kosher, so then why do we have two cases? Both cases are the same. The Gemara says, well, the way we'll answer this is Ravasi Savar Command Divrei Hamachsheba Machshir Bebita. We'll limit Ravasi to holding according to the opinion Ravasi that says that midaberes means relations and pregnant means that she's pregnant.
Why would the daughter be forbidden if the mother's not married and she has relations? Why would that forbid the daughter?
Because who was the relations with?
What does it matter?
Well, if if it was a mamzer, then the daughter is a mamzeres.
Talking about a comment, not a mamzer?
No, we don't know who she had relations with. So the status of the child, right?
My question was about the dog. My question was about the mother. If she comes and says, yeah, I have relations, but it was a co-name. So therefore, if this mission seems to indicate that that's okay, then she can marry a co-name.
Right.
Right? So just the fact that she was Zana.
That's nothing. That's nothing, right?
That's what I'm asking. Is this also what,
Yeah.
or is this practice?
No, it's a leniency. That even though she had relations out of marriage, she's still permissible to a Kohen. Yeah. And that is the halacha. Unless it was someone that was puzzle. Yeah, we mentioned that people don't know this. They think that
Kohen or Kohen Gadol?
Kohen. Yeah.
So Bula's Walsh, she's allowed to marry the Kohen.
Yeah. As long as the guy was kosher.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if the guy was not Jewish or something, or a mamzer or something, she becomes. Yeah, if the guy was a chalal, anyone that she would be prohibited to marry, that would mess up her future engagement marriage to the Kohen.
Once with the mamzer, then she can't marry
Right.
children. It all passes her.
Yeah, it would passel her for kahuna. Anyone that she can't marry would passel her for kahuna.
Well, no,
Yeah.
not for anybody else.
Right.
But with the comment, she's okay.
Then she said, yeah, even if it was a Yisrael or a Levi, it's only someone that's prohibited to her that wouldn't make a problem. Okay. Amalei Rav Papa la Abaya. Rav Papa says to Abaya. Rav Papa is a student of Abaya. He's a student of Abaya and Rabbah. Says, Liz Ze'iri. According to Ze'iri, the Amar Maimedaberes Nistera. He translated the first case of the Mishnah that says that they were just secluded. Amar Rabbi Shua, Rabbi Shua doesn't believe her. Amar Rav, but Rav says, Malkan ala yichad b'naisin ala yichad, that if someone is not careful about yichad, they get malchus. But we don't say that this woman, what's yichad? Is a woman is secluded with a man that she's not married to. Let's say the woman is a married woman, and she's secluded with another man. So we don't say that she becomes prohibited to her husband because they were secluded. Unless there was a warning beforehand, of course, right? And then she becomes a saita, unless the husband warned her. But just because they were in a room together, she comes out, she said, what did you do? She says, nothing. So she's permissible to her husband. But what we're saying now is, according to Rabbi Yeshua, we're assuming that there was more than just nothing going on there, and she's going to become prohibited to marry a Kohen. But for her husband, how does that work? What is this? What do we assume happened here? There's a contradiction. According to Rav, we say that she's permissible to her husband. According to Rabbi Yeshua, we say that she's prohibited from marrying a Kohen from now on. The Gemara says, "Afilu Tamer Rabbi Yeshua, my loss of biyuchsin." Yeah, there's a difference. When it comes to a Kohen, we have. Oh, maybe this is what you're referring to. There's a special mila. There's a special strict stringency that the Kohanim have, that if she's secluded with someone that she wouldn't be allowed to marry, we say that she can't marry a Kohen anymore. But that doesn't mean that that's the law regarding if she was a married woman, that she's now prohibited to her husband. We don't say that. This is just a special law that Kohanim accepted on themselves to be more strict. They don't want to marry someone like that. No. Those are two separate cases. I have a woman, yeah. I have one woman that's married and she's in a room with someone else. She's still permissible to her husband if nothing happened. I have another woman that's not married and she's in a room with someone else, and that person possibly was a Nasan or a Mamzer. We don't know who he is. Rabbi Shua says she can't marry a Kohen. That's a Kohen rule. It's not a... We used to have a share, right? We used to be a share for Kohen. I remember.
We did that for a little while. That was not it's pregnant. Pretty straightforward. That anybody saw. Or see, like that it's a kosher person. Presumption that
Right. That's according to Rabbi Yeshua. And according to Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Lezer, she's fine. Yeah. Yeah. That's part of the logic. Meisvei. We have a question. We see that she goes together with someone else into a secluded place, or into a ruins. Ruins would be a place that no one would go into unless they were hiding from people and they were going to have relations there. So, abandoned building, ruin. Okay, okay, that's better. Abandoned building. There. While they saw her walking in, they say, "Who was that fellow that you went with?" She says, "Kayin hu ben Achiabo." Classic answer. It's my cousin. He's a Kayin. Rabbi Gamliel Rabbi Lezer Menes. Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Lezer say, "We believe her." Rabbi Yeshua, we say we don't believe her. We think the worst. It was probably some really bad person of bad lineage. If we go back to Zeiri said that the case of the Mishnah was when they were talking together, that meant that they were just secluded. Okay. So now when we look at the Braisa, the Gemara gave me two scenarios. One was they went and they were secluded. The other one is that they went into the abandoned building. What are those 2 points there? Well, the secluded could be that they were talking, and the abandoned building meant that they actually had relations. Those were the two cases of the Mishnah, and the Bryce is bringing it out by the two examples. But according to Ravasi, that says that talking meant that they actually had relations. It was just a euphemistic term. So Tarti Lamali. So what is it telling me? 2 examples. What do I need the 2 examples? See, in the Mishnah, I had one of them was that she was Mu'beres. And not, that was talking about the child, the offspring. But over here, we're not talking about that she's pregnant. The Gemara answers, Chada Ktani. It's actually one example. You take away the I, the or, and you do it like this. L'seiser de chorva, a secluded place of an abandoned building. You can't just adjust it like that. You actually have to read the text. It says secluded, or a chorva, or this abandoned ruins. The Gemara says, the Gemara says, this actually means that there's 2 types of abandoned buildings. One is in the city and one is outside the city. This is going to make a difference. What's the difference? Where this ruins is. So, if it would just tell me about the in the city, Rabbi Gamliel says that she's still kosher. Rabbi Gamliel is the lenient opinion here, because in the city, it's a Jewish city. It's I don't know, Williamsburg. So Muncie. So most of the people are kosher. So that's going to be fine, according to Rabbi Gamliel. But if it's outside there, somewhere in the field, somewhere out in the wild, the Rav Psulametza. I don't have a city right there to say that the people came from this city and those people were kosher. I have to look at the whole world because people they are traveling from everywhere. So what's the population of the world? The majority is going to be not kosher, either not Jewish or even if they are Jewish, there's other problems. I would have said that he would agree to Rabbi Yeshua that Roiv are puzzle. And if we had only spoken about this, the ruins outside the city, but he come Rabbi Yeshua, I would have said that that's why Rabbi Yeshua says that she's puzzle, because I have to follow the population of the world. Aval Baha, but if it's in the city, in Muncie or something, I would say that maybe she's kosher. So Tricha, I need both cases. Okay. Meisvei, the Gemara has a question. Now, in order to follow this, we're going to quote a brisa. It's a little bit cryptic. Then the Gemara is going to explain the brisa. And then after we explain it, we're going to have a question. So you have to sort of hold on to, there's going to be some questions along the way, like what did that mean? So, but the Gemara is going to then follow up and try to explain what it meant. So the Gemara starts off with this question. It's a Tosefta. It says like this: Zu edus she'isha ksherla. When a woman says that I was with a man that's kosher, we trust her. We know whose opinion that is. Rabbi Gamliel. Rabbi Yeshua says, Ein emenes. We don't trust her. Okay, so far so good. We're familiar with those two opinions. Amalem Rabbi Yeshua says to them, if a woman is taken captive, what do you think happened there? Even if she says that she's tahar, don't you agree that we're not going to trust her? Amrulai, they said, Aval, you're right. Aval means emes. Rashi brings the Targum. And Aval Sara Ishtacha Kushta. Kushta is emes. True, you're right. However, it's a bad comparison. By the captives, we know that we have witnesses to what happened. And we really don't have witnesses to what happened. But it's so obvious that it's as if we have witnesses. But over here, we don't have witnesses. We don't know what happened. First of all, she says that she was just talking to him. And there's one other point. She could have said, she actually says that they had relations. She admits to that. But she says that he was a kosher man. Right? That's what she says. He was a kosher man. She has a migu that she could have said we didn't have any relations. And we don't know any better. So she could have gotten away with that. Migu, remember yesterday we had a migu. Migu is if she wanted to lie, she would have said a better lie. So really should believe her here. That's what the sages tell back to Rabbi Yeshua.
It's like the Mixas.
It is sort of.
Doesn't have the same halacha.
Yeah. Maybe Mixas has another issue there. We don't want him to avoid repaying something that he's supposed to be by. So we make him make a shua. Here it's. Yeah, there's different ways of viewing migu, but one of them is that we trust him because he could have, or her because she could have lied. Amalahem, he says back, Rabbi Yeshua says back to them, Aflazu yeshedim. Now, Aflazu means there is one of the cases that we also have witnesses to what happened. Just like by the captive, we claim that there's witnesses. By one of these cases, there's also witnesses. What is that case? Her stomach is between her teeth. That means that she's pregnant. It's quite obvious as to what happened. That's it. So there's witnesses here to what happened. Amrulai, they respond back. Now, this is where we don't really know what the conversation went. We don't know what we're missing some details here. They responded, most non-Jewish people would be promiscuous men. That's what we're referring to. Most non-Jewish men would have been promiscuous. Amalahem, he responds back, there's no caretaker, there's no guardian when it comes to promiscuous behavior. There's no one. I mean, you don't trust the security guard. You don't, right? That's the Rolena Petrobus Larayas. You can't set up a male security guard to protect a woman from nothing happening to her because you don't trust him either. So Eina Petrobus, there's no trust over here. Okay. Amed Devarim Amurim Be'edus Isha Begufa. We're just going to finish the Bryce. This doesn't really affect us right now, but when do we say this? This is only when we're talking about the woman herself. When it comes to the child, everyone agrees that the child is silenced. We'll see what that means, silenced. But basically, it means that we don't know who the father is. That's it. Okay. What did Rabbi Yeshua, what was the conversation here that just took place? And what did they respond to him? So it explains like this. This is what they responded to him. We got it that there's witnesses what she did when she's pregnant. We don't mean actual witnesses. We mean that it's obvious to what happened. But what about the other case in the Mishnah where they were only talking? Amalahem, so he responds back. When they're talking, that just means that she's a captive. Remember, the door closed. It's not so innocent that they're just talking. That's what Rabbi Yeshua's claim about all of this. It's not so innocent. Amrulai, what are you talking about? You're comparing this to a captive. Shani Shvuya, who were the captors? That were the non-Jewish people. Over them you can't trust because they would for sure behave promiscuously. Amalahem. So he says back to them, no. Anyone that's secluded, there's no guarantee to what happened over there. You can't say that, oh, is a good person. We know what happened. Okay. Nevertheless, we quoted a brisa, we explained it, and we have to look back. What just happened there? One of the things that we taught was tarti, midaberes and muberes. Weren't there two cases here? There was when she was pregnant, and there was when she was talking. And that was part of the conversation. Now, and what was talking? Secluded. Now, we had a machlekes before, what was talking? But did it mean secluded? Or did it mean that we saw them having relations, and that was just a euphemistic term? It's very obvious now, based on the way we just understood this brisa, that it meant that they were just secluded. Gemara says, Tiyufta de Ravasi, that's a question on Ravasi that didn't learn the Mishnah like that. The Gemara says, yeah, you're right, Tiyufta. Wait, probably over there, does it have question marks and commas and that's the mark? It says, the way that some commentators do it is, Tiyufta de Ravasi? Is that a question on Ravasi? Tiyufta exclamation mark. Yes, we're finished. Okay. Okay.
I have a friend, colleague, who is captive, is in Colombia, like routinely.
Right.
And this is right out there.
Right. Right. Then so they do it for ransom, probably for money.
Right, but those 6 months.
Right.
While they're waiting for the money.
Yep. Typically, the Gemara has a question. Now, there's two ways of learning the question. You can either learn like Rashi, that the question is on Rabbi Yeshua, or you can learn like Taisus, the questions are on Rabbi Gamliel. The answer fits for both. So it goes like this. Typically, dasim reif psulim etzla. Let's follow the Rashi's pshat. Rabbi Yeshua is ignoring a basic fact that the captors are puzzle, and you have the majority of them, maybe all of them, that are puzzle. And over here, we have the majority are kosher. And that was our whole question. What happened to the majority? Rabbi Shua is ignoring the majority. Taisus explains the question a little different. He says, why did Rabbi Gamliel not respond with the obvious answer? He responded with, over there, it's Revive the Comforts and Barayas, ain't up trouble. He could have said that over there it's the majority, and over here it's not the majority. Over here the majority is kosher. And whatever the case is, the answer goes that Messiah Leila Rabbi Shua ben Levi. This supports Rabbi Shua ben Levi. Rabbi Shua ben Levi, Divrei HaMachsher. According to Rabbi Gamliel, that says that the woman's kosher, Machsher Afilu B'Reiv Psulim. He says that she's kosher even if the majority is puzzle. Even in a city that most people would not be kosher, but that's what she said. She was with someone kosher. We trust her. And Rabbi Yeshua says even if the majority is kosher. So that this must be a support for that opinion of Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi that says that wouldn't have made a difference. Yeah.
Aren't the cases different where if someone's doing an action on their own and over here, it's against her will?
Yeah, someone mentioned that. Yeah, that difference would be if she was a married woman. The question is she permitted still to her husband? If it was done willingly, then she's forbidden to her husband. If she was violated, then it's she's still permissible to her husband as long as he's not a Kohen. That would make that distinction. Here we're just trying to figure out, is she believed on her claim of who it is?
But then she has a bigger then. By Shvuya.
By the Shvuya, she doesn't have a migu because we know that we're assuming what happened. No.
Even if she would say not, she would still
No, we're not going to trust by Shvuya to say that she's tar. Now, you're asking because Rabbi Gamliel said that Raiv Psulim, yeah, because even by Raiv Psulim, she's still kosher. I don't think that's by a Shvuya. I think Raiv Psulim, not when.
General case to say.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know by a Shvuya or by Raiv Psulim. It seems like everyone would agree to that, but I'm not sure. They left out that detail. Okay, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says, the one that says that Rabbi Gamliel that says that the mother's kosher, the daughter's also kosher. According to Rabbi Yeshua, the mother's puzzle, the daughter's also puzzle. Rabbi Elazar is the chavrusa and the student of Rabbi Yochanan. He says, no one says, even Rabbi Gamliel agrees that the daughter's puzzle. Rabbi Elazar has a question to Rabbi Yochanan. How could you say that the daughter's kosher? The end of the brayso that we just quoted, we said that when this is only regarding the testimony about the mother, but regarding the daughter or the child, the offspring is a shtuki, is silenced. My love, what does silenced mean? Shtuki apostle. Silence means that when the child calls to the father, we have to tell him, Shah, like be quiet. We don't know really who your father is. So that's the expression. Shtuki is that if he says Abba, Abba, or something, we say, shh, don't give that away. No one knows who that is. So sounds like a puzzle, right? Sounds like the child's puzzle. The Gemara says, not necessarily. Shtuki ukasher. We silence him, but he's still kasher. Gemara says, Umiya kashtuki kasher? Is there such a thing that there's a child that's silenced who the father is and we still kasher? The Gemara says in Kiddush Shmuel, like Shmuel says, Damar Shmuel, Asar Kainim, I'm doing Perishach and Memabal. It's 10 Kainim in a room. One of them steps outside and lives with the woman in the next room or something, or maybe she's in that room as well, and it's dark. And now they don't know which Kayan it was that had the relations. They all deny it, I guess. Or they all say that it was them. Either way, doesn't matter. Havlad shtuki. The child is a shtuki. Now, what do you mean shtuki? My shtuki. Shtuki means silence. If we say that he doesn't get the inheritance from any of those 10 men, 10 Kayanim, Pshita. Of course he can't. He's going to show up to get an inheritance. The brothers are going to say, prove it that you're our brother. He's never going to get anything from any of them. Must be that they silence him from being a Kohen. The Ksiv, quote this week's Parsha, will be for him and his descendants an everlasting covenant of kahuna. Talking about Pinchas, right? It's very interesting that when it comes, even though we know he's a Kohen and he can marry anyone, or she, let's say the child, she can marry anyone, or he can marry anyone, because we know that the father is a kosher Kohen. We just don't know which one of them it is, but he still can't serve in the temple.
I thought that to be caused, you can't marry anyone.
And that's what we're being, right. And that's, oh, no, not because of that. We don't know the sister.
Because isn't that the issue with Stuckey? He may end up marrying his sister. Isn't that why it's a big deal? I thought he can't come into the kahal because he marries half sister.
No, I thought the Stuckey meant that we don't know if the father was a mamzer or not. Unless there was a difference in a Sufi and a Stuckey. Was there a difference about it?
I thought, maybe I told you wrong, but I thought that was the big deal about being a Stuckey. He can't marry anyone.
No, that was if he gave. That was another case. If he gave kedushin to a woman and he doesn't know who it was, then he has a problem because it may be the relative of his wife, whoever he's going to marry. Yeah, I don't know about this. Let's say, okay, so he marries a girl that doesn't have sisters.
Marries a girl he can't marry. That's the issue.
I'm not sure. Okay. Yeah, we'll check it out. There was an aris, a betrothed man, and his fiance, his wife. They come in front of Rabbi Yosef. Now, turns she's pregnant. He amra minay. She says it was from my chasam. And Behu amar, and he says in minay, yeah, it was from me. So amar Rabbi Yosef, my nechashla. So Rabbi Yosef says, what's the case? There's nothing to worry about. We know everything that's going on here. This is a done deal. Everything is clear. Chada da kamaida. First of all, he admits it's good. And another point is, and even if not, we pass on like Rabbi Gamliel when we trust it. Well, Amalei Abaya says he's asking on the second comment of Rabbi Yosef. And besides, we pass on like Rabbi Gamliel. Are you telling me that Rabbi Gamliel would say the same thing if the husband wasn't Maida? Shmuel tells Rabbi Yehuda, we had this yesterday where Rabbi Yehuda is called Shinana. Shinana means sharp one or bhakti. Halacha Rabbi Gamliel, the halacha is like Rabbi Gamliel, but ba'atle sabaduvda dika reif ksheir metzla, v'acha reif psula metzla. We have a problem because when she's betrothed, everyone is forbidden to her except for one man. That's her husband. Why does Rabbi Gamliel or Rishmo said Allah is like Rabbi Gamliel, but you need also a majority of kosher men there to follow Rabbi Gamliel. The problem is over here, everyone is prohibited except for one man. So what are you saying, Void? And also we pass like Rabbi Gamliel, but we wouldn't follow Rabbi Gamliel in this case because she's betrothed over there. In that case, she was a pnuya, she was single. Gemara says to Abaya, who's Abaya talking to? Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef says to Abaya, 1 second. What do you mean? Halacha vatle savadovda. The halacha is like Rabbi Gamliel, but don't paskin like him. It must mean halachatchila hadiyavet. Means the halacha is like Rabbi Gamliel, but there's a difference between lachatchila and b'diyavet. That means, are they married yet or not? But over here, the fact that she's pregnant already and she's already betrothed to him, that's already b'diyavet. So when you look again at that statement, halacha vatle saviduvda, that means that we're going to follow Rabbi Gamliel, but don't go like Rabbi Gamliel lechatchila, but b'diavad yes. So that means that we're going to go like Rabbi Gamliel. In this case, this is a classic b'diavad where she's pregnant already, and they're also betrothed. Rami le Abai le Rava. Abai asks Rava a question. It could be Rabba on the side it's adjusted. Rava is his friend and Rabba is his teacher. Mi Omer Rabbi Yeshua in Amenas. Does Rabbi Yeshua really say that she's not believed? Ramino. You have a contradiction. Hey, Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseir Almana Sisa Shikshir Lakuna. Almana Sisa, Almana, a widow of a Isa. Isa means a doe, and what we really mean is like a mixture. Today we would say it's a chalon, but those days they called it a doe. Now, what happened over here? There was a fellow that divorced his wife. He didn't want to get too close to her, so he threw the get at her. I'm adding in that detail. Now, when the get landed, it landed halfway between him and her. Now, the rule is that if it's closer to her, she's divorced. If it's closer to him, they're not divorced, but it landed exactly on the line. So then he died. Now, she may be a grusha, she may be a divorcee, she may be a widow. It's unclear what happened. She goes and marries a Cohen. Now, if she's a widow, then that was fine. But if she's a divorcee, that's a problem. She has a son. Now, that son is a Safek Chalal, because we don't know what the status of the mother is. Yeah, she's maybe a divorcee with the child of a divorcee with the Cohen. So he's called a Safek Chalal. Well, he gets married to a woman, and then he dies. Now, this woman is Almanas Isa. The husband was a Isa, was it like a Chalant? We don't know what he was. It could be a this or a that. A lot of things going on in that story. So, Almanas Isa. Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, they said that Almanas Isa can marry a Kohen. See, we're going to trust her. Why does Rabbi Yeshua say that we don't trust the woman? Gemara says, asked 1 second. What's going on over here? Hasam Isha Nissus, Beidekas Finissus. Why did this widow, she's a widow now, why did she originally marry her husband? She must have looked into the case. She asked, where was the get drop? She went back, she took a measuring tape and she measured from here to there. She checked it out and that's how she got married. Hacha Isha Mizana, Beidekas Mizana, a woman that's promiscuous. Does she ask him first for his social security number? Does she check out everything about him to find out, to make sure that he's a good guy? It's not the way that they get in. The way they get into a marriage is they check everything. Yeah, over here, it's a different story. It's not that you can't trust it. We're starting a new case over here. We're going back on Rabbi Shua's whole story that she's not believed. We have a case where Rabbi Shua says she is believed. Says, yeah, that's because she was getting married. Amar Rava, Rabbi Shua kasha. Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Gamliel like kasha. You don't have a problem with Rabbi Gamliel? Haktani Seifa. If you go further in this, look at what it says. Rabbi Gamliel always said that the woman is believed. Amalam Rabbi Gamliel, kibalnu eduschem. We trust you that that Hayed Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira said this. But Rabbi Gamliel says that there was a ruling by Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai that we should not be mater the Almanas Isa because the Kohanim won't allow it. Now, Rabbi Gamliel is now saying that she's prohibited. Rabbi Gamliel always said that whatever the woman claims is she's believed, basically. And now we're saying, oh no, don't, they're sort of switching positions here. And so we have a question on Rabbi Gamliel as well. There's no problem with Rabbi Gamliel. Why? Because Hasam Bari Hachashema. Over there, when the woman is secluded with the man, and we ask her, who was that fellow? She says, this is who he is. He's Mr. So-and-so, he's a Kohen. Rabbi Shua, Nami, you see, Hachashema. Over here, I skipped that. Over here, she doesn't know what really happened. No one knows what happened. There was a question where the get went. It's an old story. She's going to go back and examine. we don't trust that she really found out all the information. It was a suffix to the Bezdin, okay. Rabbi Shua, the Rishua Nami like Kasha, Hasam Chad Sveika Tre Sveiki. Two ways of learning this in Rashi. Rabbi Shua says, one second. Chad Safik, in the Mishnah, we have one doubt. Who was the fellow that she was with? Was he a kasher or puzzle? It's one doubt. Rabbi Shua says, well, we say that he's a puzzle. But over here, there's two sveikas. Now, one pshat in Rashi is two sveikas means that it's not the original suffix. It's an offshoot of the suffix, and we call that two sveikas. The original suffix was what took place with this fellow's mother before she got married to the Kohen, and now we're discussing the child. So it's an offshoot. It's like a watered down suffix because it's a generation removed. However, Rashi says, but there's another pshat he quotes. I mean, that's funny that you call that a svek sveika when it's really only the original suffix. It's just not. He quotes from Rabbi Yosef Toiv Alam. He says that what really happened here, slightly more complex. A woman was married to a man. He threw a get at her, and the get landed midway between him and her. We don't know if she's divorced or if she's. Anyway, he dies. The husband dies. We don't know if she's divorced or it's a widow, or if she's a widow. But within 7 months, she marries another man. Now, we don't know if the child is from the first husband, which is perfectly fine. If the child's from the second husband, now we don't know if the second husband just married a divorcee or a widow. It's a svek sveika. So it makes the case more complex, and that's why Rabbi Yeshua says that that's permissible. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Hilkach, Rabban Gamliel, Alam Leibari. Rabban Gamliel, he likes it's stronger to him an absolute claim. When the woman says, I know who he was, the man that I was with, and this is who he was. And that's why he says that she's kosher even with one safe, it was suffix. The kill shema, but he doesn't trust the doubts, because she'll be puzzled even by a svek sveka. Rabbi Shua, alam lechad sveka, dafilu bebari nami puzzle. Rabbi Shua says that the suffix is it needs to be a svek sveka, because even if there's a definite claim by one suffix, that's not good. The kill svek sveka, dafilu b'shem nami machsher. That even if there's a not a definite claim, that would also be kosher, like by the Almana Sisa, where we said that Rabbi Shua would allow that. Yeah, we can't do the next piece yet. Let's leave it here.